Thursday. Fleet Master Chief Raymond Kemp in the building.
Good morning. Good morning. In the building.
The building. We didn't see you last week, but that's because you were very busy.
Out and about, doing fleet stuff.
Yeah, it's a busy life.
Somebody's got to do it. I was talking to someone just the other day, and they were asking, I hadn't seen you in a while, what have you been up to? And I was like, well, I went here and I went there and I went there. They're like, man, it must be rough. And I was like, you have no idea. Traveling, 6 time zones to get to the States, or, planes, trains, and automobiles to get to Germany, or to Sigonella, which is a super rewarding place.
I'm sure.
Or Suda, another places. You travel a day, you're flying commercial to get to pretty much anywhere, in the theater, the way, that we have to travel. So sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but super duper rewarding. The opportunity to go last week and speak at the symposium was pretty humbling.
Yeah, and that's the Surface Naval Air Forces Leadership Symposium, right?
Correct. So all surface forces, the Force Master Chiefs, the 2 of them, it's actually Surf Pack, Surf Land, hosted a Surface Forces CMC symposium, and Airland Air Pack hosted a symposium simultaneously.
Okay.
Which is very unusual. Normally they happen separately. I don't remember the last time Surface Forces did one. I have been to the Air Forces, been affiliated with the Air Forces Symposium since 2012 when I went to Harry S. Truman. And so I've got frequent flyer miles, going and attending that event.
Absolutely.
This one was likely the largest senior enlisted symposium that we've had since Mick Hurt was in office, and there was a big worldwide CMC conference. So what happens is whenever I get invited to go to a symposium, I go and represent Admiral Fogo and the entire team that's here. So Naval Forces Europe, Naval Forces Africa is where I had the opportunity to go out and brief on. So to brief what's happening with Commander of Naval Forces Europe, my man JJ Gonzalez, Naval Forces Europe, Naval Forces Africa, and 6th Fleet was what was the brief that I gave. I grew up in an environment where they say when you get tasked with doing something, then you go do that, and then just kind of see what happens from there. So I started off with the brief, again, CNA 6th Fleet, just joined by the 6th Fleet Command Master Chief, thankfully, and had the opportunity to brief that. And then I opened up for questions. So with the Surface Forces folks, they were hyper excited because you talk about launching Tomahawks, you talk about hunting for submarines, that is that's their lane. That is what they do.
Yeah, on a daily basis. That's what they train for. That's what they're trying to do at all times.
Fact. And you take a gunner's mate or a fire controlman, and they're saying, when do I get to launch?
Their fingers are itchy.
I'm ready now. And you get an STG, a Sonar Tech, and they say, when do I get a chance to prosecute submarines? And so for them to go out there and execute, as we have said before and certainly established across our Navy, is that every rating and every profession leads to lethality. And so the opportunity to go truly do what you've been trained to do. That's what happens. You come into 6th Fleet, you come into Navier, NavAF. First of all, we're gonna put you to work. So Absolutely. Be ready.
The fighting fleet, as you so lovingly call it.
It's fact. So you come out here, get some of this, and then we will have the opportunity to create and build the consummate professional. And then for Air Forces, we bring the conversation that we had with them. Let's have a conversation about what's happening with P-8s, being intercepted by fighter jets. Well, let's talk about George Herbert Walker Bush. Just not so long ago, there was a pilot who launched off of the flight deck and came back as the first person to shoot down air-to-air combat in 40 years. And so that opportunity is there. And then with Harry S. Truman back in the theater in the high north, above, within the Arctic Circle, which they hadn't had someone up there for years, to the tune of 30. That was Exciting. So when I was able to just present what it is that we do for a living out here,
and really just bring it to everyone's faces and remind them, because
not everybody watches open source news,
and you can be removed. It's really easy to be removed from these kind of things.
It is. You know, at one point it was common to say during other conflicts that we've been involved in our Navy, certainly after 9/11, is that we are a Department of Defense or a Navy at war, but a nation at the mall. Well, what happens is if people don't realize the conflicts that are going on, they don't realize the challenges that we face from day to day, they could just be at the mall kicking it. You know, and even those warfighters who should be preparing to fight and ready to go, coming over here, they could just be caught up in the mundane, routine training environment, not realizing that when you come out here, it's going to be, you must be agile, mobile, and hostile. JJ, if you would, just kind of, how did Try to Juncture go? Who'd you get a chance to meet? What players were involved, and what were you most pleased with? I think that's what I'd like for folks to hear.
I want to hear what you most took away from it, I would say.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest thing, Fleet, that I got to see, that I like to enjoy, truly enjoy, it was the interconnection of the NATO partners with our people. Now, we talk a lot about power of competition and the partner of choice, right? Now, so I'm going to share a little story with you. There was a situation where I met with this SM2, and SM2 was working with the German corpsman, equivalent to corpsman, and one of the things that he kind of stressed to me is that he was learning how they did something as simple as triage, right?
Yeah.
And some of the stuff that they did was different than what he did, and we tend to think that we have the best way.
Right.
But when you set eyes on other people's procedures, you learn from it. So when we talk about partner of choice, that made me realize right there that the small details that our sailors do at the lowest level is what makes us special on that partner of choice. And then I saw the Marines land on the beach, and I saw the ability of the interconnection between our Marines and 30 partner nations from NATO. And that, when you see the seamless operational, it's an amazing feat. So that to me was the biggest highlight, the way to be able to see our sailors, our Marines, Army, Airmen operating with our partner nations. The other piece that I want to highlight is the way that our ships operated on the high north. As you stated, we're talking 30 years plus since we have operated here. Right. So, when you look at the way we get our supplies, the way we have to navigate to these seas, the way, it's different conditions, it's cold weather conditions. Right. And when you look at this environment and you see our sailors being able to do it, that makes you sit back and think about training. Training leads to lethality.
Right.
Training leads to readiness. So yes, are there some things that we need to do probably a little bit better? Certainly. There was a lot of lessons learned, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on another subject with after action reports. But the true measure was the fact that we were able to complete the mission safely, and when we did have some hiccups, we were able to recover from those hiccups. So extremely pleased, extremely proud.
Good.
Quite a lot of people out there, 50,000 plus. That's a big number.
Yeah.
That is a big number.
It's a lot of factors to control.
Right. So when you look at the operational level, and then liberty is a mission. I would say that 1,000 times. And the way that our sailors behave assured and represented our Navy was also extremely well. So Fleet, I can go on for hours.
Oh, yeah.
I do want to give one big shout out, and that's, you mentioned supply. Now you think about it, I'll give you an example. Iceland, it was they're not used to us getting supplies to the AOR. Right. So our ships were having a hard time. And the supply system, they responded, and they gave us the supply that we needed for our ships to go out there and navigate. Parts too. all the parts that we needed. Our ships again.
They were able to get them there just exactly as you needed them.
So big shout out to our supply folks out there.
Logistics is really a tough thing, especially in an area where they're not accustomed to the volume and size, perhaps, of what a ship, certainly a carrier strike group, might need. So as we talk about dynamic force employment, talk about those folks that are operating in the place where it's hard, I just like to say congratulations to the crew of the USS Bulkley. The Wolf Pack, as their nickname would call them, gives them the have made it back home to their home port and safely. Congratulations to those sailors who operated successfully and to the families who endured in the absence of them. We ought not forget about the challenges that the entire team faces. So the logistics and the team on board the ship, yes. The support of the staff, the Desron, who gives guidance and operational control, yes. And to the friends and family who support those sailors while they're out and about. Just want to say thank you for your service, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity rest, recover, and then come back and do it again.
Yeah, big bravo Zulu to them.
Hey, Fern.
Fleet, another big shout out is to the Ross, who's also returning from their patrol, and they have done outstanding out there. So to the crew of the Ross, great job. And then also I want to send a big shout out to the Arleigh Burke. They're not returning, they're still out there operating, but they're doing well. And they're standing the watch right now. So keep doing great things there, Arleigh Burke.
Yeah, their CMC, she told me, she was like, this is the Arleigh Burke. There's a lot of it's the first, obviously, in the Arleigh Burke class.
Yeah, but they're the very first one, so they're still holding it down.
That's right. The commissioning of Arleigh Burke, as a matter of fact, I was just kind of pushing through some history the other day, not so long ago history though. Arleigh Burke said at the commissioning of the ship, he said, this is a fighting ship, and those who operate it ought to know how to fight.
If you've ever been on Arleigh Burke class, anyone out there who knows, you walk in there and it's a good place to be. It
is. And I would recommend folks who have the honor and opportunity to serve on a guided missile destroyer to realize that is a fight. That ship is built to fight. So the creature comforts that you might find in days, this just not there. You are there to fight.
When I went to Rhoda, I was able to go back to the USS Donald Cook. I commissioned the USS Donald Cook, and Fleet. I got cap on the USS Donald Cook. So I was able, cap, for those that don't know, is a map. So I was command advanced by my commanding officer to E5 on the quarterdeck of the USS Donald Cook, and to be able to return back and see them get ready to go on patrol here soon was pretty exciting. And they're preparing. They just passed all their certs, as a matter of fact, yesterday, and they ready to deploy too. So a lot of good stuff going on all around.
So the blended retirement system is the new retirement system. So for those sailors who qualify, the tyranny of time is real. As a young person, someone once told me that as you get older, time moves faster. And I wasn't sure about that when they said it to me, because I thought...
Because you had all the time in the world.
In fact, but now as I realize it, shucky ducky, it's already getting ready to be December in a couple of weeks, that those folks who are looking or who have the option of selecting either the blended retirement system or staying with the old system, choose ye this day what you're going to do, because it is driven by the law. It is not something that you can go back and forth on. It is you make the decision by December 31st, and then we drive on from there. Don't do it with regret. Don't look in your rearview mirror, because once that decision is made, it's not a Navy thing, it's a Department of Defense thing, it's a law. Once that decision is made, it's done. We had an EP-3, that was flying up in the Black Sea on the 5th of November. Got intercepted by some Russian jets. It just so happened, JJ, I was sitting down to do a panel with the MCPON and the other Fleet Master Chiefs at the Surface Forces Symposium, and when all this occurred, and it was on the news. So they showed the video clip of the intercept before we sat down to do the panel. So of course all the questions came to us.
Of course, yeah.
But it was
the hot topic at that point.
Of course. And so again, for the ships, the cruisers, and destroyers that have air intercept capability. I mean, they're the ones who are riding shotgun in defense of the aircraft carrier. They were, supremely interested in that as well.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you think is important while the intercept was taking place? What do you think is the most important thing to be thinking about? Maybe say for that pilot, say for that crew.
Right. So, as the for the pilot and the crew. So the crew's primary mission is reconnaissance, mm-hmm. right? And so, but for the pilot, the most important thing for them to consider is what are their rules of engagement. Mm-hmm. And so whether you're the conning officer or the OOD on a ship underway, mm-hmm. or whether you're the pilot of that aircraft, the most important thing is to remember what are your rules of the road and what are your rules of engagement. Mm-hmm. And so to make a snap decision could wind up creating an environment that would be detrimental to the health of the crew of the aircraft or on board a ship. It's my habit not to talk about operations that are outside of our AOR.
That's true.
But while we're talking about this, I will say that the crew of that destroyer over in 7th Fleet, as they were encountering a Chinese surface vessel, what a measure of professionalism and patience that was displayed there. They're within 45 yards of another ship that is acting in a way that is certainly unprofessional. I don't know. I mean, both of us have served in 7th Fleet, but no matter where it is, if there is a ship operating in a way that is not professional, we have to understand the rules of the road, rules of engagement, because it can turn into an incident that escalates into something else.
Mm-hmm. And I think that when we talk about readiness, lethality, and the imperative of sea control, all that is equivalent to risk. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Admiral Fogel spoke about a few weeks back was about the beautiful thing about us is that we are trained well enough that we are able to take risk and take the high road.
Right.
So that high road piece, all of these incidents show how we operate, how safely we operate, and how we are willing to take the right risk, mm-hmm. and when we need to take the right risk.
There was plenty going on over here in Europe as we celebrated the 100th year of the armistice.
Absolutely.
That was a big deal. There were folks, thankfully, through solid leadership and management teams that sent sailors all throughout the AOR so they could celebrate.
Big events all throughout Central Europe.
Absolutely. So that was a big deal. And I appreciate the service of veterans. That is those mm-hmm. folks who came, volunteered of their time. We still have a few folks living from the draft, but they served and then they got out of they left the service or retired, and I appreciate all those things and all the volunteership that went along with them. Those soldiers upon which we stand today.
If I could bring a quick shout out to the crew of the Mount Whitney, we have about 150 civilian shipmates in there. And
yep.
As I was walking the deck place and when I got lost in the engineering department, mm-hmm. I realized that most of them have been in the United States Navy.
Nice.
So they were veterans. So big shout out to them. They're returning to home port soon too. So thank you for what you guys do out there. Thanks to all the veterans.
Last night I had the opportunity to go to the Single Sailor Thanksgiving meal at the Naval Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 200 folks. That was a blast.
Oh yeah,
I did
that last year, and they had loads of food, and it was good too.
Yeah, food was super duper good.
Did they have the? I think maybe the Chiefs served last year.
The Chiefs did. The Chiefs, they did. They served
okay.
last night. There were a couple first classes there as well that were helpful. USO, MWR on deck. Admiral Fogo, Mrs. Fogo there.
Oh wow, big show out then.
Oh yeah, the stew burners from the cooks. Probably. I mean, stew burner's not a bad thing. It's like a nickname. So
yeah,
the cooks actually are the ones who prepared the meal this year. It was absolutely delicious. I met a young sailor by the name of Romo from Texas. I sat down and chit-chatted with him and another CB for probably about 10 or 15 minutes, and a very interesting engagement and a good time. And then,
Hey,
go ahead.
let me hang in there. So I met this HT3 last night who was there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
HT3 came up to us and said he's the one that did the cookies.
Right.
So
Okay.
he baked the chocolate chip cookies. But then he was proud to say that the dragon had gone down, how you wash the dishes. And he went to the back and he fixed it.
Yeah.
Again,
That's what's up.
Hey.
that's what we're talking about.
That is actually really cool, yeah.
HT3 works in the barracks, so big shout out to you.
Yeah.
I didn't think your cookies were gonna be all that, but they certainly were.
And,
So
it's,
good on you.
and it's good to say because HT over here working in the barracks, maybe he's not doing all the HT stuff he can do. I'm sure
Right.
he was thirsty to fix that
right.
that
Good point,
that dragon.
HT2.
He was hurting. He needed something to fix.
Well said.
That's right.
The neat thing about that is that every now and then you never know when you're going to be called upon. I never know when there's going to be an opportunity for you to lead and do something special. What's our time look like right now?
We have about 3 minutes left.
3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to push you this story because I think it's worth it, right?
Okay.
So there's a situation where, and I'm going to send an email today, and the subject line is going to be, and that's when leadership began. So the sailor needed to re-enlist. They didn't have re-enlist an officer. So this leader finds out about it and says to the departmental career counselor, hey, let's go find us an officer to do this re-enlistment. So let's go to the gas station. I'm like, what, the gas station? Sure. So we're there in Norfolk, right? And go to the gas station. Didn't see anybody there. And like, okay, let's go to the galley. The galley? Okay, yeah, let's go.
Why not?
They go
Yeah.
to the galley. They ask some CS, hey, you seen any officers coming in and out here? He's like, yeah, there were a few, but they didn't see them. So they turn to walk out, and they bump into this lieutenant. And the senior chief says to the lieutenant, hey, what are you doing? You ready to eat lunch? Guess what you get to do? You get to re-enlist a sailor. We've got a sailor over at the bowling alley, and we're going to treat you to lunch and have you come over and administer the oath. I'm like, well, I've got this appointment at 12:45 or whatever the case may be. Like, yeah, you're going to miss that
Yeah,
appointment.
how
but guess
important
what-
is that really? Come on, this is
Guess what you get to do instead? Instead, you get to have a story of one of the coolest stories of your career.
and I'm sure you'll get forgiven for missing your appointment.
Right. So the lieutenant said, okay, let's go. And they hop in there whoosh, and they go over the career counselor's like, I can't believe, you just asked some stranger. And the senior chief was like, hey, look, we have a sailor that needs to re-enlist. We don't want to reschedule that. We don't want to change it. Family's in town, all these other things. We can do it. So the mindset of we shall not be overcome by circumstances is a measure of leadership that I absolutely love and embrace. And I encourage every leader out there, by the way, to lead. So I think that's the end of our time.
Yeah, just about.
I would like to say before we go that there's 10 two-letter words that we have the opportunity to live by, just like the senior chief did. 10 two-letter words that will make us better leaders, make us more impactful in an environment like a re-enlistment, like Master Chief Quinones did yesterday, even though he didn't tell me he was going to do it. It's really a big deal. But those 10 two-letter words are, if it is to be, it is up to me.